Bandletale is finally out, and unfortunately that also means that the Riot Forge is officially dead. It's sad for a variety of reasons. If you're somebody who plays a lot of League of Legends, it's sad because there goes one of the main ways that they were going to allow you to explore the worlds of the characters. And if you're somebody like me who has quit playing a lot of League of Legends, it's sad because now to explore the characters that you've fallen in love with, you have to play League of Legends. I waited a while to make this video for two valid reasons. Number one, I wanted to give the floor to primarily League creators because I feel like their words are so much more important than mine when it comes to things like this. So if you haven't seen Necrit's video or Nicky Boy's video on the topic, I suggest you guys go watch them. I'll link them in the description. And number two, I also waited because when the news that the Riot Forge was dying came out, it kind of sent everybody into a bloodthirsty frenzy. I do want to do a quick disclaimer here and say that I'm not going to talk about the industry layoffs or any of that stuff as a whole because that's an entirely different topic, and I know a lot of people that were affected by it, and it's really sad to see. I am going to primarily focus today on the Riot Forge and its death. So now that we got to breathe a bit and let all of our emotions calm down, I want to take a look at the Riot Forge and the reality of it all. Because I think that there's been a lot of weird theories that have been spread around and accepted, and I kind of want to just shine a light on the reasons that I personally think this project failed. For starters, the Riot Forge was a miracle, to say the least. There is no way that the Riot Forge should have existed in the way that it did. A lot of people like to sit back on the idea that League of Legends is one of the most popular games of all time, so you could just slap the label onto anything and it's gonna sell out like hotcakes. But in reality, that cannot be any further from the truth. I'm not saying that League of Legends is like a plague or a virus or anything like that. It's just that League of Legends is a hyper-specific property that is notorious for solely focusing on PvP. League of Legends is very much League of Legends. It's easy to fall into the belief that just because so many people play the game, everyone really cares about the lore, the universe, and the characters. But realistically, as massive as the League player base actually is, League in and of itself does a horrible job at representing its lore and universe. Jhin, for example, is one of the coolest characters I think I've ever seen in my life. But then you choose him in-game and all he does is hum to 4 and walk funny. I mained Nasus for nearly a decade, and I still can't tell you anything he does besides stack. This isn't meant to be shade to the game at all. If anything, it's more impressive that the gameplay is so solid that it doesn't need to hyper-focus on things like that. But in short, fans of League of Legends don't always mean fans of Runeterra. The primary content space as a whole should be an indicator of that, with everything being high-level gameplay or just pro-scene stuff. Fortunately, this can also mean the inverse. I mean, Arcane was the most watched show on Netflix November of 2021, and my brothers watched that show, and they don't even know what a League of Legends is. And they probably will never find out. It's just basic marketing that naming something to sound like it's a spin-off will oftentimes scare away a potential audience by subconsciously making them fear they won't understand the story without some needed knowledge of the original IP. A series called Bloodline about a martial arts family dealing with generational trauma and demonic possession may sound appealing to just about anybody. But the second you call that series Tekken Bloodlines, it's gonna make a lot of people go, I never really played Tekken, so I don't think I'ma get it. So naming every single title as big word, a League of Legends story, was a massive marketing disaster to begin with. The problem gets so much worse when you also realize that League of Legends is such a specific game. The reason why it's addicting and the reason why people come back, I mean, I've quit like 10 times, but I'm still in Howling Abyss, is because no matter where you go, you will never get to experience something like League of Legends anywhere outside of League of Legends. So obviously, asking these hyper-competitive League of Legends players that mainly grind solo queue to turn off the MOBA and play a rhythm game that features Ziggs isn't going to bode well. Even if the Riot Forge titles were made by some pretty good indie devs that have already found their own successes making some games that were incredibly similar, it's a lot easier to market a game called Moonlighter over marketing a game called The Mage Seeker, a League of Legends story. Not only does this title scare away the people who haven't had the time to explore League of Legends for what it is, it also cemented these titles as being nothing else but League of Legends spin-offs, thus shrinking the potential audience that these games could have actually had. But all of these are minor nitpicks compared to our next massive problem, which is the price point. League of Legends is a free game. It's always been a free game, and it will always be a free game. Please don't look up how much money you've spent on League of Legends. I swear to God, it's free. I mean, sure, Riot does sometimes strap its players into the milking table every single time they release a sexy skin that looks like a previously released sexy skin, but realistically, this game being free is a massive reason as to why it's so popular in the first place. Hell, it's the reason why me and my friends all got into it. So asking League of Legends players, a lot of which live in regions where $30 USD is way too high a price for like anything ever, to spend so much money on a somewhat short indie game experience is a very tall order, especially when these games only feature storylines about one champion out of 160 plus characters readily available. So to reiterate, Song of Nunu, a League of Legends story, is made for fans of League of Legends who have $30 to spare, who are a fan of Runeterra and the lore itself, who also like indie titles specifically in this style, and are also down to play a story that primarily focuses on the specific champion, Nunu. Each one of these prerequisites shrinks the overall interest in the game itself. Now here's where I'm gonna go a little bit off the rails and kind of disprove something, because I keep seeing it hashed and rehashed in every font physically possible. I always see people say that Riot Forge failed because they didn't market the games better, which is completely untrue. The reality is that there was nobody else that they could realistically market to and expect any kind of return at all. Marketing is easily one of the most expensive aspects of developing anything at all, and spending tens of thousands of dollars in order to make ads for League of Legends spin-off indie titles would have quickly hemorrhaged the budget they had that they could use to make the games good or even functional. Riot mentioned the games in their articles. They mentioned them in the patch notes. They mentioned them in Nintendo Directs. They got in the Game Awards. They took up the front page of the client itself, and basically they put way more money into marketing these titles than any of us would ever know. Like, here's a screenshot of a Bandle Tail ad that I just got while using the bathroom. This stuff costs money. It costs so much money. I just keep seeing so many tweets of people saying that they would have played these games if they just knew that they were gonna come out, and that Riot Games could have magically just shit out hundreds of thousands of dollars to market better and make them bigger successes. But that's just completely unrealistic and untrue. The Riot Forge dying news was everywhere. Hell, Riot was trending on Twitter that day. Everyone talked about it on Twitch, on YouTube, everywhere. Everyone knew that the Riot Forge was dying. Yet somehow, when this news came out to hundreds of thousands of people on Twitter, there was no spike in players at all over any of these titles. Again, they're not live service games. You can still buy them and you can still play them right now. People just aren't doing it. If you're actually one of those people who didn't play these games on release because you didn't know, then I really do highly recommend that you go download them and try them out, because from what I've seen, a lot of them are amazing. But the unfortunate truth is that most of these games did not do that well. By League of Legends standards and the sheer scale of what League of Legends is, a lot of these games did quite awful, which is why I'd like to reiterate that the Riot Forge is something that should have never existed in the way that it did. Like, maybe one spin-off and call it quits there, but 5 or 6 games is completely insane. And I guess that's the reason why I'm making this video. A lot of people are shitting on Riot for giving up on the Riot Forge and failing at the delivery and not marketing marketing the games better, etc., etc. But the harsh reality is that these games failed because they were fighting 50 uphill battles at the same time. It's okay to not want to spend $20 or $30 on a Ziggs rhythm game that has some kind of bad music. It's also okay to not be able to afford Mage Seeker or justify the purchase because it's a relatively short game. Or to not want to play the Song of Nunu because you hate the little bastard. All of those excuses are fine and valid, but I can't really just sit here and pretend that the correct response is that these games failed because Riot didn't just market better. Realistically, Riot tried everything that they could have, and again, these games should have never existed to begin with. Some very passionate and caring Rioters begged to get the funding in order to get this project off the ground. And in turn, we got 6 massive passion projects made by accomplished indie devs that allow people to explore Runeterra in ways that they could never before. I know it's cheesy to end this video on this note, but I think that the Riot Forge is one of those don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened moments. The fact that now forever we have these full-on experiences made by passionate people is a miracle. That's all I want to say.